As with our earlier writing targets, W1f W2e Details covers two targets because they are the exact same for both persuasive and expository writing. Your details are your proof for the claim and evidence that you develop in earlier practices, and of course, as in other avenues of life, if you're going to make an opinion, if you're going to tell people your opinion, you should probably be able to back it up with proof, which is where details come in. So this target starts at the one level with being able to give relevant or on-topic facts, quotes, statistics, etc. But really they mostly come from you, from your own observations of the world, from the people that you know, from the texts that you perhaps are most familiar with. You aren't pushing outside of yourself. At the 2 level, you are still giving relevant facts, quotes, statistics, whatever, but they are a mix of text, self, and world. So you're starting to get some other textual support from places that you don't see and hear from all the time. You're starting to do some research, in other words, but you're still relying heavily on your own observations of the world. At a 3 level, relevant facts, quotes, statistics, etc., they're primarily textual. So you might have one self example, but that will be it. And it had better be a really good one if you're going to use it. Okay. And then at the 4 level, you have your relevant facts, but they're key facts. They're the most important facts, and we'll talk about what would make something most important. They're primarily textual still, and you're also going to go above and beyond, and you're going to choose either logos, ethos, or pathos appropriate to your audience and purpose. You may also, but not necessarily always going to be, making text-to-text connections. So, a breakdown of that, what I'll be looking for. No matter what you happen to be writing, your details should be relevant. If they're not on topic, they're not proof. They're not supporting you. There's no point in them being there. They just become fluff in your paper, and we don't want fluff. It's better to be concise in all ways. So they've got to be on topic, for sure. And that includes being on topic to the paragraph that they happen to fall into. You want to make sure that they connect to the specific evidence and then above and beyond that, the claim. The best details are going to be primarily textual, so think research, the text you're reading, and then analyzing. As far as being appropriate to audience and purpose, we've talked about these different types of details before in terms of analyzing literature, so there's nothing new here. Logos are facts. Ethos is an appeal to authority or ethics. What's right versus what's wrong. And pathos is emotion. And different types of people might respond better to different types of details. For instance, people who work in the scientific field are probably going to be much more likely to appreciate logos. Whereas, I hate to generalize here, but there's some truth to it, women in general tend to be more connected to their emotions, not always, but often, I should say, are more connected to their emotions and may appreciate emotional details as well, the pathos details that help make an emotional connection to whatever it is you happen to be writing about. Ethos types of details, when we're talking about authority figures or ethical appeals, what's right versus what's wrong, think about people who are very concerned with human rights, people who are concerned with appearances. I don't mean that in a negative way, but they might be impressed by big names if you can throw them in there. And truly, we all should be at some case. I mean, an expert is an expert for a reason. That should mean something to all of us if they're giving their word on something. As far as connecting to other texts, you'll see this primarily in literary analysis or in research pieces. If you can bring in multiple texts within one paragraph and show connections between them, that's a great use of details. But you're certainly not going to see that in every single piece that you do. Persuasive writing, in fact, you may not use it very often. Key details. You need this for the 4 level, what's most important. Consider the most vital facts or concepts. I mean, without them, you don't really have a case. For most important moments of the text, when we're talking about a literary analysis, for instance, you probably would want to have a quote from the climax of the piece, perhaps one that shows clearly the conflict of the piece, or the best worded. Some phrases are stronger than others. Sometimes the author might use some alliteration or some other figurative language technique to help make a phrase sound better. And those are better details to use because they'll sound better in your paper as well. So So some examples here that you might see in persuasive writing, and we're going back to our earlier example that we started about the American education system, including more vocational training to better address the needs of the modern student and economy. So an detail, most people I know didn't need a college degree to get a job. This is a self, and it may be true and it may support, it is relevant, but it's just your own observation. And if it doesn't match my observation, I may not be very convinced by yours. Much better, and I built on logos, ethos, pathos here. A logos, some data that was pulled by 2018, nearly 1/3 of American job openings require vocational training. I've given a citation to anytime you pull information from another source, you should cite it. So we've got a logos, this is a fact that's based on statistics that have been run over the years. An ethos appeal, I'm pulling on some authority figures here. President Obama, our authority figure, making the ethos, proposed initiatives to give $2 billion over 4 years for career training, and it clearly shows that he felt it is important, and if the president felt it was important, then maybe we should all consider it to be important. And then a pathos appeal here as well, and I have to admit I made this one up. I'm sure there are plenty of stories like this out here that I could have cited. John Doe dropped out of school because he didn't feel his vocational ambitions were valued or accepted. Someone dropping out of school, I'm telling you right now, is going to get to any mother out there, because no mother wants their child to drop out. No teacher really wants to see a student drop out either. So we've got some pathos appeal to that very targeted audience, but it might appeal to other people as well. So different types of details, different types of audience that it might appeal to, but solid details to use versus a vague self for persuasive writing. For expository writing, again working with the previous example, our claim here that we're working with is Wilfred Owen's Dulce et decorum est. The poem reveals the effects war has upon soldiers both during and after battle. An detail, Owen describes the soldiers as run down. Does he do that in the poem? Absolutely, but it's vague. Doesn't really offer any specific proof, and we want specifics. If you're doing a literary analysis, I should certainly see quotes used. That doesn't mean long quotes. You can take the phrases that stand out to you most. So for example, a better detail might be, Owen describes soldiers as beggars under sacks to show how run down they are. I mean, beggars typically are run down. Their clothes are not in good shape. They look tired. Under sacks, heavy bags, people carrying heavy loads, all of that builds up to that image of run down. So the quote in of itself is relevant, it's specific, it helps prove the claim and the evidence that we had actually developed earlier. But I think there's even stronger wording further on in the poem. Beggars under sacks could really apply to more than just soldiers. I mean, that could really apply to anyone who's worked a long day. I want something more specific to soldiers to get a really great key detail, and we find it here. The soldiers' boots wore out or were lost, but they means soldiers limped on bloodshod. Okay, so we've got a very clear visual here, people limping in action. And not only are they limping, but they have bloody feet. That's a really strong visual image to help show the effects that war has on these men as they're out on the battlefield. And blood is something that will really make a big impact on the majority of the human population. I mean, we all understand what it means to bleed, and we all understand that it's not a good thing to bleed. So that particular choice of words is a strong one, and therefore a great detail to use to prove our claim.